Small businesses are the canary in the coal mine. And what it means is small businesses are the indicator. Their struggles and what they're facing, mid-size and enterprise level organizations will eventually face the same type of struggles. You want to take a strategic phased approach as opposed to a large-scale hiring model that very often is going to fail.
Today we are discussing the backbone of every successful company, its people. In 2026, small businesses face a unique challenge, which is balancing the need for rapid growth.
Workforce planning, it's a process. It's not an event. Don't think of it as a microwave dinner that's quick and ready in a few minutes. This is actually a slow-cooked recipe with a lot of ingredients and a lot of steps.
Hi everyone, this is Maheen and welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast. Today we are discussing the backbone of every successful company, its people. In 2026, small businesses face a unique challenge, which is balancing the need for rapid growth with the necessity of cost control and employee well-being. And to survive, owners must move from reactive hiring to strategic people management. Joining us today to discuss this is Stacey Hummel, the HR executive consultant at ADP Canada. With over 25 years in the HR industry and 15 years in executive leadership across the public and private sectors, Stacey is a thought leader dedicated to building best-in-class people strategies that mitigate risk and drive engagement. So without a further ado, let's dive in. All right, so without a further ado, let's welcome our guest, Stacey. Stacey, it's a pleasure to have you with us here today. Thank you so much for joining. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. Right? What a great forum for me to share stories and the dialogue I'm having with my small business clients across Canada and provide a little bit more insight into some of the work and research that ADP is doing for small businesses and their workforce planning issues. So yeah, I'm super excited for our conversation today.
Super excited as well to really dive into so many things that we have planned to kind of cover today in our conversation. Now, Stacey, let's begin our conversation by understanding how do we manage seasonal staffing, right? Many small businesses, they really struggle with the seesaw effect of seasonal demand and unexpected turnover. Tell us, how can small businesses manage staffing during seasonal changes and turnover?
We're actually talking about two different things, right? You've got seasonal staffing, but you also have turnover. So one of the things that small businesses can actually do when they are looking at seasonal staffing changes, what they want to do is be very proactive and use data analysis. You want to go back and look at what your sales looked like last year, right? Where were your peak times? What were your staffing levels like? Were you overstaffed? Were you understaffed, right? Were you paying out a lot of overtime? So those are some of the things that you're going to want to look at. You're going to want to target. So you want to build more of a year-round applicant pool. And by that, I mean re-engage return workers, right? Create a re-engagement program. Don't lose connection with them over the year. Bring back high performers. Mm-hmm. One of the other things that you also want to do is you want to make sure that you're targeting a little bit more of a diverse workforce. Very often when we think of seasonal workers, what we're thinking of is we think of students, right? And although students are a great resource for seasonal staffing, they're not the only one out there, right? You want to look at retirees that are looking to get back into the workforce because I think we know people are living longer and longer and they think, geez, I can go out there and work part-time. I can work during peak seasons to earn a little bit more money. You want to look at people that are making career changes, looking at what we consider the gig worker that goes from one gig to another, those are great options as well. Right? So when you're looking at turnover, you're going to be looking at a little bit different. How do you mitigate some of that, right? So you want to look at things like be very transparent in your recruitment process, right? So be upfront. This is a short-term fixed contract. You end up having the opportunity to retain those people through that seasonal peak if they know when it's going to end, and not saying, well, it could turn into full-time, it may not, but they're more apt to stay. You're going to need to be a little bit different in terms of your competitiveness, in terms of being a little bit more flexible, offering shift premiums, offering, a more flexible shift. One of the things that we like to look at is how you incentivize people. Year or season end bonuses, right? So if you stay to the end of the season, this is what we can give you as an end of season bonus. We can also change that as incremental pay increases throughout the season to ensure that they're staying throughout it. So those are some of the things that employers can do. And one of the final things in terms of seasonal staffing is don't start this a month before your peak season. This goes back to the being very proactive. You want to start 3 or 4 months before your peak season. Be open to remote interviews because students are very often away at school. They're not in town. So you're going to want to be open to changing the way you typically do business.
Amazing. Now, that was super insightful. We started off with something, so detailed, and that is something we really appreciate with our guest, Stacey. Now, you're right. I mean, creating such a flexible staffing model is clearly the difference between maintaining momentum and losing your best people during a rush. Now, let's explore how flexible workforce strategies drive productivity during rapid scaling. Stacey, how can businesses really scale their workforce without disrupting operations?
That's an amazing question. And a lot of small businesses struggle with this. And a lot of times it prevents them from growing and scaling. One of the things is you have to be clearly aware of is that you want to take a strategic phased approach as opposed to a large scale hiring model that very often is going to fail. And the reason they fail is if you don't have new employees that are highly productive and highly skilled, you risk slowing down that productivity, right? Versus if you manage this on a smaller scale and you have streamlined processes, what you're going to find is your productivity doesn't stall even when you have fewer employees. So some of the things that you want to do, the first step is going to be stabilize. And that is, and what do I mean by stabilize? You want to look at your systems and say, what's working, what's not working, right? You want to fix the problems that aren't working first and foremost, right? Because they are going to create problems down the line. You want to streamline, you want to automate. One of the things so you want to optimize your processes, whether that's your operational processes, but also your people processes as well, which is your payroll, your HR types of things. One of the things that I will tell my clients that it is key to do is to communicate your plan. What is your strategic vision for scaling your organization, for growing your organization? Communicate it with the stakeholders that matter. That's your leadership team. That is your employees. Empower them to provide feedback because they know your operation just as well as you do, and they have a significant stake in its success. You may want to collaborate and communicate with external stakeholders, your client base, right? And the biggest thing that I would tell clients to do is invest in workforce management software, in a system, right? One similar to ADP's Workforce Now. And the reason I say that is because when you go back to your people processes, your HR and your pay, right? If you have a system that can recruit, hire, onboard, train, performance manage, track your workforce management, labor costs, and your people, then you're not going to run into those bottlenecks when it comes to those type of functions. And it frees up people to actually working on broader organizational strategy.
Absolutely. Scaling with precision really ensures that your growth doesn't come at the expense of your current team's output. So thank you so much for highlighting that, Stacey. Now let's discuss how businesses can navigate staffing challenges during growth. Tell us, what staffing challenges do small businesses face and how can they really overcome them?
Small businesses, and I heard this saying a few weeks ago, and I thought, how apropos, that small businesses are the canary in the coal mine. Mm-hmm. And we've heard this a lot through business news and business analysts. And what it means is small businesses are the indicator. Their struggles and what they're facing, mid-size and enterprise level organizations will eventually face the same type of struggles. So it's really important to pay attention to what goes on in the world of small business.
Right.
So now let's figure out what those challenges are. So you have a labor market shortage, a skills gap. What small businesses typically face is limited budgets. Mm-hmm. They very often will have antiquated or fragmented technology systems, right? And one of the biggest ones that is very, very unique to small businesses is regulatory compliance. So how do they address that? And one of the greatest things about small businesses is if you think of a compact car versus, a big tour bus on a major busy highway, which one can pivot quicker? Which one can change lanes a little bit quicker? And that's the compact car. And that is your small business. And that's why they're so unique, is that they are able to adopt changes a little bit more quickly. So one of the things is most specifically with labor shortages is develop in-house, invest in your people.
Right.
And this is so important. And ADP does a lot of research, and we have this series called Today at Work, and it identified organizations that invest in their own people, invest in the development of their employees. Those employees are 5.3 times more likely to feel secure in their jobs. Mm-hmm. And what are Canadian workers dealing with right now? It's job security. So if you invest in them, they will feel more secure. More secure employees are more apt to stay with you. Right? So when we look at the technology, again, what we want to do is invest in workforce management. Mm-hmm. That's super important, that you can't get away from that. The other piece that is really important that I mentioned was the compliance. And part of the reasons that small businesses really struggle with regulatory compliance, so from an HR and a payroll standpoint, is because they don't have the in-house skill set. Right. If you're looking at hiring a certified payroll specialist or a certified HR person, that's a lot of dollars going out in terms of salaries. So part of the solution is finding a compliance partner. Mm-hmm. That you're going to find the cost is so much lower. So for example, my clients are ADP clients, but part of the service they're offered is a comprehensive HR service where they're provided with a team of HR specialists, and the expertise is ours, and we help them to remain compliant with HR legislation, the same as comprehensive payroll. Mm-hmm. We make sure that you are compliant with all of your payroll. So CPP, EI, all your remittances, how you're paying people, your overtime. So those are some of the things. The final one is the limited budget.
Right.
So this one is a really tough one. But what I like to tell people is your competitive edge is going to be your brand. Mm-hmm. So you have to distinguish yourself from other larger organizations and even other small businesses that are competing for the same group of people, the group of workers, right? How do you do that? You create a different culture. right? You build your brand. Your culture is different. People are looking for not just financial reward, but very intrinsic rewards. So build your organization around that as well. And those address and hopefully provide some perspective in terms of how to address some of those issues that small businesses are facing.
Wow, that is a very loaded response, and it is very detailed and thorough in terms of helping SMBs understand how do they really overcome these challenges that they face. And you're right. I mean, approaching HR as a proactive risk management tool, it allows for a founder to really focus on the vision instead of just putting out, fires that just come across them. To all the founders watching, in 2026, your people strategy is your business strategy. And if you are waiting until someone quits to think about your HR workflow, then you're already behind. Staffing really isn't about a cost to be minimized. It is an investment to be optimized. Use the tools available to you, like time and attendance tracking, to see the gaps before they become crisis. Please don't let a staffing shortage be the reason your vision fails. We'll take a quick break here. Please don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we'll break down how smart HR strategies can actually reduce costs while supporting your team.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep, healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah, well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep, that's all us. That's all UPS.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Let's dive into how proactive HR management can help you stay efficient and in control as you grow. Now, Stacey, let's look at how proactive HR management helps control rising labor costs. How does streamlining payroll and attendance really help control these costs?
Well, it's like you're doing my work for me with these questions. Again, streamlining is really about automation, investing in technology, investing in workforce management technology is going to significantly reduce your labor costs. And here's how it does that. So the first thing it does is it is going to mitigate human error, right? Human error. What does human error create? It creates penalties when it comes to compliance issues, right? So just because you're making an error in terms of your CPP remittances, your EI, your EHT, your overtime rates, your leaves, just because you've made an error doesn't mean that a governing body isn't going to come in and say, now there's penalties for you to pay.
Right.
So those are big costs when you aren't aware that there is those gaps without an automated system. So the system is going to do it for you, right? So the systems are built, the databases are built with all of these rules in place. The other piece is automation, and using technology reduces your risk of fraud. Whether the fraud, and what I mean by fraud is time fraud. Right. So you have some that is deliberate, right? Like, I'm leaving early. Could you punch me out later? Or, I'm going to be a little bit late. Cover for me so somebody doesn't know. And then there's the less deliberate things that happen, that you're calling in, you're taking a sick day, or you've taken a few vacation days, but the paperwork didn't get filed with payroll or with the HR, or the form didn't get walked all the way down the hall to them, or the manager simply forgot to put it on an Excel spreadsheet. The Excel spreadsheet got corrupted, or the wrong formula was in there. And so then people end up with a little bit more time in their banks. So
Right.
they're taking that time. So those are some of the things that they're going to do. But the biggest piece when you're talking about labor costs, again, is the time it takes managers to build schedules for their employees that a system can do for them. The time it takes, oh, I'd like to swap shifts with this person. I'm not going to be doing this. Everything is automated. For frontline managers and administrative staff, sometimes who have the highest salaries within an organization, that's where a lot of your time saving is going to come from. And the time saving for them to put back in to more strategic operational needs, right, is a massive time savings.
Right. No, efficiency in the back office, it really translates directly into more capital available for growth and for employee retention. So I'm glad that we were able to cover this as well. Finally, Stacey, let's explore how employee well-being drives retention and long-term business success. How does employee well-being improve retention during high turnover?
So this is something that is so near and dear to my heart, and I really try and focus on with my clients in terms of building wellness programs directly into their day-to-day operations. What's rather interesting is back in November, ADP released its 2026 workforce trends. And in it, and I hope I'm getting the statistics right, is that 87% of employers felt that it was that they had a requirement to provide a place like workplace well-being. It was their responsibility to create that. Yet only 46% of employers were actually doing it. And those that weren't were saying it was the cost that was preventing them from doing it. So, and there's a lot of cost-effective measures to implementing well-being in the workplace. But the cost of not doing it is actually significantly higher.
Right.
And if you look at the true cost of turnover, and it's a sliding scale depending on the difficulty in filling a position, but turnover cost you at the very bottom end. One position turnover could cost you 20% to refill it, 20% of that annual salary. So if you have an annual salary of 60% or 60,000, I'm sorry, and that position, because you have poor workplace culture, you're not promoting a workplace with well-being in it. Let's say you have to replace that position 3 times. Well, at 20% on a $60,000 job, that job now costs you over 2 years the salaries that you've paid people, but now $12,000 each time you have to fill it.
Right.
So how do we prevent this? How do we prevent that turnover and that cost? So one of the things you want to do is creating a psychologically safe environment for people. That means providing a workplace where people feel free to talk about their struggles, their difficulties, and they're not going to be judged for it. It will say, well, how do I do it? There's lots of free resources out there, and, they're easy to look up. Quebec's done a much better job at really working this in to their legislative compliance in terms of psychological safety. One of the, and I know not everybody has the budgets to implement, really comprehensive group benefit plans, but one of the most cost-effective benefits is to have an EFAP, an Employee Family and Assistance Plan. So even though you might be creating a very safe workspace for your employees, right, that trust environment, that trust-based environment, you also want to give them the opportunity to have a more confidential area to go to talk about stuff that's going on at work, stuff that's going on in their personal life. We have no idea what's going on in somebody's life that they might need something or someone to speak to confidentially. And those are great resources. And the PEPM on those, so the price, the employee per month model, that very often that's how they're sold, is pennies in comparison to your return on investment.
Right.
The other two are a little bit more in depth and they require some work. So next we have flexibility and work-life balance. And when I talk about flexibility, I'm not talking all the time about a flexible work model, remote or hybrid. I'm not. If you can do that, that's great. That's a great perk to give people, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that you can do that. Look at seasonal organizations. They can't really do that.
Right.
But flexibility comes in different forms. It means be flexible. Understand that people have responsibilities outside of work. You might be caring for older aging parents. You might be caring for children. You might have an old car that needs repairing. You might have a dog that's aging and needs help. Whatever the case may be flexible. If somebody says, I'm going to take the extra time over my lunch break, is that okay? I'll make up the time here and there. That's great. But one of the things you want to make sure that you're doing is that's coming from the top down. That's coming from the most senior of leadership, because the last thing you want to do is apply this in an unequitable manner, right? So you want all managers to be applying this, and you want this to be, that's your review on Google or Indeed. Those are the things you want to see, that this is a great place to work. You want to look at the work-life balance. And what I mean by that is, so we are seeing, and there's statistics, and I believe it is from, again, our Today at Work, where we are seeing, I can't remember the numbers, but it talks about, and I don't want to quote them and be wrong, it talks about people that are putting in unpaid hours each week.
Right.
And we see that a lot, especially with salaried people. So what happens? So they start to take on more clients, more projects, more hours. So their work-life balance is out of whack, right? So what do we need to do? We go back to that proactive planning model and make sure you have the right skills and the right number of people, so that you're not having some people burn out. Because remember, you're very unique in terms of your competitiveness against other businesses. So you want to keep those people. You don't want to burn them out. The last piece is about creating a meaningful work environment for people. And it's important to remember that not everybody wants to be a CEO, a senior leader, a manager. Some people have been there and some people never want to be there.
Right.
But regardless, it's really important to recognize the value they bring to your organization's success, right? People don't want a lot. This isn't about building a whole bonus structure or compensation structure. These are about reward and recognition programs. And whenever I mention this to my clients, like, oh, that sounds pricey. It doesn't have to be. One of the tricks is making sure that you tie it to your mission and values, right? So every quarter, recognize somebody. So let's say you have integrity, client-centric, authenticity, as part of your organizational values. Recognize people for that quarterly. Recognize somebody for embodying the true mission statement of your organization. Call out people on their work anniversaries, right? Talk to the rest of your staff about the contribution this person has made over the last 5 years, right? And be consistent about it. We see that our happiness at work index, and it's Canadian, that I believe it is 52% feel they're recognized by their direct supervisor.
Right.
But only 52%, that's not really high. And then it drops more to only 46% that actually feel recognized by the organization as a whole. So it's really important that organizations take this on and recognize it doesn't take a lot of money, right? You can buy a gift card, you can do a plaque or a certificate, right? If you want to bonus them, that's great. But if your struggle is still with, a couple of questions back, your budget,
Right.
you want to keep that in mind as well.
This is a very well laid out, grounded response, Stacey, and it tells us a lot about how do we, just by doing simple things, really enhance the well-being and the retention of the current staff. And prioritizing the human element of your business is really what builds the long-term loyalty and that fuels sustainable success at the end of the day. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate all the details that you were able to share with such great insights, such great expertise. As you wrap up, if there is one piece of advice that you'd like to give to owners that are really struggling with staffing issues, what would it be?
Be patient. Workforce planning, it's a process. It's not an event, right? Don't think of it as a microwave dinner that's quick and ready in a few minutes. This is actually a slow-cooked recipe with a lot of ingredients and a lot of steps. Remember, be proactive. Make decisions based on data. Treat your people well. Streamline and automate. Be a good place to work. And your employees will become your brand ambassadors.
That is a great reminder that starting with such a clear process is probably the best way to really regain that control. So thank you so much, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having
being
me.
on the show with us and for sharing such great expertise.
Really appreciate it.
And that was Stacey Hummel from ADP Canada, a masterclass in why ethical HR practices and streamlined operations are the true engines of small business growth. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and visit CanadianSME.ca for more resources. A special shout out to our partners, UPS and ADP, our preferred HR and payroll partner, for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses across Canada.